and Darti, sorry, my mistake. So
Sure.
over to Kashi to begin. Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Adjacency Board, R&D Cell, I warmly welcome you all to today's session on Consultation Project in Academia. This initiative is a part of our efforts to strengthen the bridge between academic expertise and real-world problem solving. The consultation projects are not just an extension of research, they were living laboratory where the faculty knowledge directly contribute to industry, government, and community developments. Today, we have a privilege to have with us the distinguished academic and practitioners who have embodied this very spirits and applied knowledge innovations. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce our speakers, Mr. Anil. Sir is a currently a professor of practice at Tata Institutes of Social Science and visiting faculty at IIM Indore. He also works as an independent as a learning consultant with the engagement across the corporate sectors, higher education, developing organizations, skills development initiatives, and K-12 education program. He brings him in a rich career trajectory. Previously, he serves as a chief learning design and social impact at Tata Class Edge, where he shaped the innovative approach to the education technologies and content design. He was also a member of Board of Studies at the Center of Excellence in Teacher Education TEST. His area of interest span is a wide canvas: education technologies, learning design, philosophy and education, and capacity development. Beyond academia, he contributed thought leadership on education and edtech through his writing in leading publications such as The Hindu, Financial Express, Scroll, The Print, Digital Learning, and Deccan Harland. With a such multidimensional background, Mr. Anil is uniquely positioned to help us to understand consultation projects can be designed, executed, and leveraged for a greater academic social impact. We are truly honored to have him here today. Please join me to giving a warm welcome to Mr. Anil sir. Anil sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Kashnath, for those kind words. I don't really deserve them, but however, thank you. So we start. So I have only a few slides. So the slides I'm going to use are essentially conversation starters. Okay, so let's imagine this session as a longer Q&A than than a talk that I'm going to do, and then wait for the Q&A. Okay, because we'll also do this as part of what you call a practicum of consulting, because consulting is essentially about identifying the problem, right? So I'm also here as a consultant. I would like to identify the challenges that you face currently as far as consulting is concerned, or breaking into the field of consulting is concerned. Pooja ma'am has already to some extent given me a broad overview of what you are looking for. So let me just share my screen. Yeah. Yeah. Can you see it, or yeah? So
Yes, sir. We can see.
yeah. I'm calling this session from expertise to impact, because what we have in academia is expertise. How we move from this expertise to impact, and as far as the industry is concerned, is probably what the challenge before us is. Okay. So to begin with, in consulting, our value is not in what we know, because industry already knows that the academia comes with a certain level of expertise. What they're looking at is actionable insights, right? So it's essentially about what the things that we tell them, how they're going to implement, how they're going to see their problems differently from the way they have perceived it now, right? So that is how we put it forward. And why it matters is, of course, because if I'm to talk about one of the issues that face my industry, for example, is, let's say, edtech. Okay, now the typical way in which edtech works is looking at what is scalable, what sells in the market, right? But being an education technology organization, you also have a commitment towards the field of learning. Now, the field of learning is something that there's a large body of existing research in that field, right? And there are very few commercial education technology organizations that leverage this expertise, because what they look for is how do I put forward a solution as quickly as possible into the market. But you cannot look at education that way. And if you're in education technology, you're also expected to be to know your educational science, right? And that's where somebody like an academic or a scholar from the educational field could help, because one, in terms of if you're designing learning, what are the things that you need to know? What are the kind of ethical implications that you need to look at? What kind of consequences will your design decisions or product decisions can have on the market or on the industry in general? So, so there are different dimensions, right? So one is a dimension of expertise that most academics bring to the table. Second is in terms of societal consequences, in terms of when you recommend a solution, whether it's industry directly without knowledge of educational science. If they were to do something, what would be the consequence? And even when you get short-term gains, like for example, we know of certain large education technology organizations that grew very, very rapidly. I'm not taking names, that grew very, very rapidly and then got into trouble later, right? Because it is also to do with the fact that there is an issue with the way in which you scale in education. Okay, and for that you need to understand how this. I mean, it's the wrong thing to call education industry, but this how the whole landscape of education works, especially the school education scenario. Okay, so if you look at it very commercially, you're likely to jump into problems. Are there any kind of other kind of examples? Look, I know your expertise is more to do with economics, commerce, management, finance, and so on, if I'm not mistaken. So if there are any such examples from your thing, I'd like to listen to first before I jump in to the next one. Like what you see as what problems in your field do businesses or policymakers for that matter keep running into, that you could help solve, for example.
So maybe I look at my field and say I'm an administrator, and I look at controlling or managing 200 to 300 people. So maybe the strategies that I use in education can be useful to an organization which is into HR practices or so on. Or maybe the kind of psychological theories that we teach in class in OB can be given to them as in it could be a transactional theory, or it could be a transformational or a Zori window theory, and such kind of things can be given by me as a consultant to HR. This is what I believe.
Right. Absolutely. This is absolutely pertinent. This is something that you could share. But before we share, we need to identify, what could be the problem that we would be wanting to solve. Have we observed any kind of problems in the industry that we think we'd be in a better position to kind of resolve it, for example? That is where we get into, like, it's so if your institution currently does not do consulting, one of the ways in which you could softly enter into the field is through building bridges between industry, right? So there are various ways of doing it. Okay, one of course is probably, to begin with, maybe you could invite people from the industry that you think you would be able to contribute to as guest lecturers for guest sessions with students, or maybe even with the faculty. Doesn't really matter whether it's like one-on-one session with the faculty, or maybe it's a guest lecture with the students, and then you establish one, of course, students gain practical knowledge from the industry if through guest lectures like this. Second is you build contacts with the industry through that, right? So it's one of the initial things that we have to do as academics, if you've not been interacting with industry on a regular basis, is to figure out ways to get into, like how do you build relationship with the industry? that's the first question I think we need to address. Is there something that we've, that HR or college or others have looked at? Have there been guest lecturers in the industry before? Anyone can respond. It needn't necessarily be ma'am all the time. It could also be others, please. But yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
we keep inviting guest lectures. I think every college, whichever is
Right.
represented today, national, MMK, KC, everyone gets industry experts in various areas. But we
Right.
never thought from this angle that you are telling us. So when I
Right.
was listening to you, I was thinking that yes, we missed an opportunity maybe because there are too many industry experts that come into our college, but we never
Right.
saw from that angle.
Yes. Yeah. So the industry experts that come to college, I think, that they are our first link to the industry, right? So, and then you can look at how you could contribute. Like, for example, through them, maybe you could look at setting up a pro bono session in your area of expertise, right? So, you talked about administration, the kind of things that you could bring to the table as far as HR practices are concerned, perhaps. So you could do like a pro bono session with one of the, organizations that one of your guest faculty is representing. And these are some things that industry is very open to. I mean, they are maybe little reluctant to paid prepositions to begin with. Yes, Priya, yeah.
Sir, good evening. Ma'am,
Good
good evening. Ma'am, this is Priya Kriplani from Nari Gursani Law College. Sir, recently we had introduced I am from the law field, I am from
Right,
the law
right,
domain.
right.
So recently we introduced in our college as an incubation hub, as an incubation center.
Okay.
Sir, so we are planning to link the law professionals with the industry. Sir, may I get some suggestions on that? How can you can give me some good suggestions for the development of this hub? Because see, consulting, if I talk, not in monetary terms, but we provide the legal aid. Being the
Right,
law college, we are not, it is not exactly the consulting, but we provide the free legal aid. It is just the
right,
suggestion type, we already do. But now
right,
what we plan, we are planning to link the law domain with the industrial, with the corporates. So
right,
sir, can you give me some tips how to flourish this center? I had the ideas, but implementing the same, and my college is in the vicinity of Ulhasnagar.
right,
So many of the challenges I am facing, like link up with the high industrialized or the high big entrepreneurs, like I'm not able to link up, or the ideas which I had in my mind, I'm not able to implement it or execute it. So
right.
can you suggest me something? How can I link my law profession, legal profession with the industries through this center? That is incubation hub. We had introduced incubation
Okay,
center.
okay. So one of the things, ma'am just mentioned that, there are many times that you invite guest faculty from the industry to your college, right? So, I don't know if you have managed to get anyone from the legal side too, from some of the industry that you are looking at. So one is, of course, we need to have some broad idea in terms of, just the way in which when we start research, we start with certain questions in our head before we get into the field to do our, empirical research and whatever. We need to have some kind of a larger question or larger idea about the kind of industry for which we may be able to bring our expertise to, right? In which case, we need to probably zoom in on just 4 or 5 of those organizations from the industry that we think that we can contribute to. Shortlist about 4 or 5 organizations, then see how we can build relationships with them. Inviting guest lecturers is one way. There could be other ways. One is, of course, bringing them just for some kind of a brainstorming session. It could be a conference that you are holding, a small roundtable conference, for instance. And you could invite a couple of these people from the legal department of some of these organizations to that roundtable. Okay, and then, so that is one, of course, you see the real issues that the industry faces in your interaction with them during the roundtable conference. You get an idea, then you can go back and pitch in terms of, what ways you think, where do you think some of the problems lie and what you could bring to the table. Okay, because industry does not accept or rather welcome expertise just for the sake of expertise, like in academia, right? So we all know that they move in a very what we refer to as an instrumental. For them, knowledge is very instrumental. I mean, I hope all of you understand what I mean by instrumental. So
Yes,
essentially,
sir. Yeah. Yes,
so
sir.
yeah, everybody has, there has to be some kind of a utility, for knowledge. Okay? Unfortunately, that's how they look at it, and we can't change it. So if that's the case, then how is it? What is it that we are trying to solve? Okay, how are we trying to solve, and how is it better than what they think is the solution to it? Okay, we need to work around this today, thanks to. And the other thing is, for example, how is it that our solution could be better than, let's say, I mean, today, thanks to AI, or maybe AI could also be misleading. But the fact is, you have different kinds of AI tools, right? From GPT-5 or GPT-4o to Claude AI to many others, right? If the client were to input their problem into let's say ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will also give them a consulting report for free, right? If they are able to articulate their problems well, and they will get a report. And I'm not saying that that's the most optimal report, but then we should see in what ways our recommendation going to be one up or more distinct or better than what today the AI can also give. That's another additional layer of challenge that we have today as consultants. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, great. So yeah, any other instances like this, then, because these kind of specific cases is what would help give us the sharpness in terms of how do we look at taking this ahead. So as the slide says, it's the value is going to be judged by impact and speed of execution. So that's something that we need to keep in mind more than anything else, right? So, think of it this way: when you do, I don't know how many of you also guide research dissertation. I'm sure quite a few of you do, whether it's master's dissertation or PhD, or sometimes even today, even undergrad, we have RDs happening, isn't it? So when we advise our students on their research dissertation, what we're doing is essentially consulting. It is no different. It's just that it may not lead to something like a product or a commercial solution. That is that. But we are advising. But now imagine, flip it around and see if what you're advising is leading to the solution of a particular problem. Yeah. So in terms of consulting, there's something that you're already doing through advising your students. It's just that you need to place in the context of an industry which is looking for, impact and speed of implementation. So this is a famous Einstein quote that if I had an hour to solve the problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. Because the biggest issue in consulting is about identifying the problem. So maybe I could I just start with a particular consulting assignment that I did, and then maybe any of you could also connect to it. Again, because of confidentiality clauses, I cannot name the client. But so I was doing this consulting for a skill building organization. Now, the skill building organization, it was, in this particular one that I was doing, was essentially targeting technical skills among graduates who've not done engineering or a particular, they're like, it could be a BSc, BA, BCom kind of graduates who've not done computer science, or they're not engineers, okay? And what this skill building organization does is essentially they give them, it's an online course that they enroll in for about 6 months. 3 months to 6 months. There are different kinds of programs. And at the end of it, you would, they would also be given internship where they get to apply what they learn, and also a certificate of completing internship. So that is the current model. Now, who teaches them these courses? There's an online course, right? So these are experts from large technology companies in India. Okay, and these are subject matter experts, people with lots of years of experience, and they teach in the evenings after their work hours. So they come and enroll for this course. They sit for these synchronous sessions, face-to-face sessions with experts. Then they also have access to certain self-paced learning materials like documents, videos, and other things. There's also some kind of a sandbox environment. Sandbox environment is essentially an environment where they can code in a simulated environment. So they get to understand what the coding is. Now, it looked a fairly robust product and a fairly robust solution, so to speak. Especially the internship part was really attractive. And in fact, that's what made a lot of students to enroll. But the problem was that they're not able to identify that many of the students were dropping off, despite the fact that there was an internship at the end. Many of the students were dropping off within about 1.5 months. Sometimes even sometimes maybe even after the 3rd month. So then I spoke to the project managers involved, the product designers involved, the technicians, the platform makers, and also the main stakeholders. And I figured that the kind of students who were enrolling for this program came with different kinds of background knowledge as far as technology is concerned. So some might have had some kind of exposure or inclination to coding and things like that. Others had almost zero exposure to that. Okay, now everybody is being taught more or less the same way, starting from day one. The other one is in terms of subject matter experts. So subject matter experts they come with a lot of expertise in their domain. But expertise in a domain doesn't mean that you're also experts in pedagogy. I mean, we who teach in college know that pedagogy is such an important aspect of teaching, right? So because it involves understanding your learners, ensuring that you engage them in ways that they can relate to, giving them examples and analogies that they can relate to, and also giving them feedback and getting a sense of whether they've understood what we're teaching, and then customizing our teaching based on their current understanding, right? So that lots of ideas around pedagogy. So these are not people who had any inclination towards pedagogy, but they're experts at teaching. So then I looked at what is available outside, right? Including open education courses offered by courses, like big names in the US, like, it could be a program at Stanford, but it's open. People could look up. So if you're looking at skill building, there are a lot of other options, even outside as open digital resources, videos, and so on, where where they're able to connect better to life than some of the, what the faculty were doing over here. And also no personalization. So if a student is at a certain understanding level of, let's say, 1 versus another student whose understanding level is 4, and then we're teaching them the same way, then there is an issue, right? And that's not something that they had thought of. So essentially, to me, that came because of my expertise in this field called learning design, and there is something that we learn. It's called the cognitive load theory, which is essentially the fact that cognition happens better when you have better prior knowledge. And if you don't have adequate prior knowledge, the first thing that we need to do is to build that prior knowledge. Okay, not the prior knowledge that we think students should have, but starting from where they are currently and then building it. Yeah, so that's the personalization part. So that's and my recommendation was how to build some of these things. So that I just want to share that incident. So I could also probably, when I look at it, can you see this note? Is the note visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is something like, I mean, I've changed it a lot because I wanted to take away the name of the organization, etc. But I made it a little generic. So, so there's a background context. Then I had to come up with a problem statement. Can you read it? Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So there was a problem statement, and I had to also then, these are things that I communicated. So there were at each step, it's not like everything happened one day, right? This assignment went on for about 3 months. And every week I used to have these calls with the main stakeholder and communicate each of these things. And I had to also, it's not like this problem statement came out of 1 or 2 meetings. The problem statement is what you're seeing over here is the result of about 4 to 5 iterations that I had on identifying the problem with the key stakeholders after my conversations with the project managers and designers of the program. Okay. So here were some of the approaches that I took. Like there was a diagnostic review, which is essentially I looked at program materials, learner feedback. There was also documented learner feedback and participation data. I did some comparative benchmarking. I talked about that open education sources that I looked at and some of the other competitive projects, stakeholder consultations, and then of course the recommendation roadmap. Okay, so this was some of the expected outcomes. Yeah, so this is essentially the backbone of like the way in which you would structure your consulting assignment. And any of your consulting assignments will have a similar structure. Of course, it will vary a little bit here and there, but broadly, you need to know your background context. Of course, to begin with, the larger problem that you think is the current problem, which is your perceived problem. Okay, and we may move away from the perceived problem to an actual problem, because perceived problem could be fuzzy. It may not actually be the problem when you dig deeper into it. Okay. Although the problem present to me was dropout, that is not exactly the problem. Problem was lack of personalization. Okay, and not understanding learner needs. That was the underlying problem. What you were seeing, what you could see outside was people dropping out. Okay, the visible problem was what people were dropping out. The not so visible problem was the fact that the program lacked personalization. Yeah. So I'm keeping it here. So if you could, if we can have if a similar example from the industry that you're looking at, whether it's legal, management, policy, and so on. Mr. Kashi, you may have to help me a bit because without participation, it'd be difficult to kind of come to grips with consulting, because consulting is not something that I can just talk, right? So consulting is something that we do. So I think we all have to do this.
Sir, when you said this is the kind of structure that you make for your consulting,
Right.
this is after you met them and you presented your one pager to them that this is how we will work at, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't have a so I didn't have a one pager. So what I did, what I said was for one thing. So I didn't. This is like my
For us.
broad thing that I came out. This is a structure that I had at the back of my mind. Okay, broadly that I need to find this. I need to understand the background and context well. I need to understand the problem statement. I didn't give them this. I worked with them through this, because if you give them a document like this, they're not going to look at it.
Sure.
Because the industry is not at all into too much text or even into reading. Okay, you have to chase them. All of the structures for our understanding, for is our background to how we're working with them. We needn't necessarily tell them. So, but we will broadly, if they ask us, we'll in terms of how we're going to walk them through this. We may have to walk them through a process that we will follow. Obviously, the idea is that, because some of these things we cannot predict, like, for instance, if you have to identify the problem, the real deeper invisible problem that we want to address, then we may not be upfront be able to predict who we need to speak to. that will come to light only after our initial conversations with the stakeholders. So whether I should be speaking to the project manager and product designer, should I be speaking to the learners who are taking this course? That is a decision that we take after the initial conversation. There are also constraints. For example, I could not speak to the learners directly. They did not want me to speak. They did not want me to have direct interaction with the learners for whatever reason. Okay, so each of these consulting, I'm just giving you the example of one. There are different kinds of examples, but so that we have one cohesive story in our mind, I thought I'll stick to one consulting story today as the template on which we could work on. So yeah.
So if for example, as I said in the beginning, we belong to HSNC board,
Right.
and this is a 75-year-old board. Came along with independence here, set up different institutions. It has also schools under it. So if we say, like, we have to do a project for HSNC board, that you want to create a brand which has reached 75 years, but it has another 100 years to go. And board comes to you and says that, how will you help us create a better brand? So like, this can be one project of consultation that if I give up to, like.
Absolutely. The other one, ma'am, is that you could look at it and like an institutional pitch too. Not necessarily a specific faculty of a specific department. It could be an institutional pitch. There are a lot of these project tenders that you see that are put out by CSR cells of different organizations. It could be H&L or Samsung. So we also looked at we do respond to some of these proposals that are put out by corporate cells, corporate responsibility cells. And those are
where do they put up these, sir? If I interrupt, where do they put up these projects?
You could actually,
so if I have to look up to.
It could be an act. So one, of course, is your network, so that that something like this is happening. Okay, the more network you have with industry, the more you come to know. Okay, so membership in your Chamber of Industries and Commerce, and some of these memberships, or the fact that you have you've been invited to some of these talks over there, conferences over there, that will also help. So any kind of building of bridges with these industry bodies, as opposed to just going to a specific organization, like a specific company, could also help. And also build relationship with some of the larger organizations that could have an like an industry where your expertise really matters. I'm not in a position to say which one. Like for instance, if I am to say for example, if I'm in education, I would definitely be in touch with Tata Trust, one of the largest educational trusts in India. Okay, I will try and get in touch with Azim Premji Foundation, for example, one of the largest educational organizations, funding organizations in India. Yeah, so I would I'd make a short list of at least on the development side, because the development side is more receptive to academic institutions than pure for-profit industry, right? And the good thing is that some of these development organizations also work with for-profit industry for execution, right? Because they have scale of operations. So that opens our door to for-profit organizations too.
So, sir, one more question, as in all teachers would want to know, is that I say, for example, any teacher wants to start with a consultation project, as you said that you interact with industry, network with them, call them for guest lectures and pro bono lectures, and can.
Right.
Do I need to register as a consultant, as an academician somewhere, or it is just I start with my?
You don't have to register as a consultant with any place. As I said,
No.
Institutionally, it would help if the institution has some kind of a not a tie-up,
Policy.
it could be like a, policy or some kind of a, MOU signed between, a larger organization like Chamber of Industries and Commerce, or, something like that. So or larger organization like that, that could help. Okay. Because that way the industry is gaining membership in something, and through the institutional partnership, individual faculty could also, look at taking up consulting. That is, I mean, of course, all of this depends on how your, the kind of constraints or possibilities that you have built within your institution.
Okay.
Yeah. Because every institution will have its own rules and regulations, so I wouldn't be able to, comment on that. But this is, the more there are institutional partnerships, the better it is even for individual faculty.
Okay. I think anybody has questions, if they can raise it to sir.
Yeah,
Because
Yes, ma'am, I would like to go. This is Chandni.
yes, Dr. Gandhi.
So, sir, this is because I represent environment and sustainability, and I guess there is a lot of scope in that segment for entering into consultancy. But my basic
Yes.
reading with the corporates is that they kind of don't want us, right? So, what, according to you, is the manner in which we can reach out, access the really interested parties? Because there are a lot of tie-ups we have. If you look at our institution, that is HR College, we are one of the most closely intertwined with the industry. And forgive me for saying that guest lecture is possibly something that has been going on for years, and we have, I mean, a lot of industry partnerships. So still, what I see is that it's very difficult to get across. So could you just help us with the way in which that can be tackled?
Yes, I completely, with you, Dr. Chandni, on the fact that, many a times the perception is that the industry is not very interested in academics, but the reality is slightly more complex. It is the perception in the industry that academics are, fundamentally just theoretical, okay, and that they lack the practical knowledge to help industry. But it needn't be true at all, and it's actually not true. And it depends also on us, right? So, for example, if what we produce in the public domain, whether it's our writing, whether it's our interaction on social media, because we also need to build our credibility, our voice in the public domain, right? So, for example, I use LinkedIn and Substack to interact with the industry as well as with the academia. Okay. So if you have, when you're making a point that the industry is going to sit up and notice, very likely that they'll be open to having a conversation with you. Okay. On the other hand, if you're only being very critical in a typical academic way, it's not something that industry will be interested in. Of course, we'll continue to publish in academia, but that kind of a only critical tone about industry is something that industry may look at, but it may not really help us build bridges. That's the way I would see that. So of course, first thing is we need to know what we bring to the table. What are our perceptions? Where do we think the issues are? And giving an inkling in terms of how do we think we could solve it. I'm not saying that we go out and post on LinkedIn in terms of how we can solve a particular problem, because each problem is very contextual and specific, and we can't see that. But of course, it is about letting the industry know that you have identified the problem deeply, and you have a very different take, and you have a very unique take on it.
So it's a continuum to that question. Then the intersections between the academia and the the corporates are, I feel, more one way. They are not keen to tie up in any way to call us in for, in any case, for any discussions. So So I guess what you said is very true. They still don't regard us as something that we know or we have any information or we are kind of enlightened souls. So they'll really have to go a little lower than that to accept us because we may have solutions. And if you see some of our institutions, these are buzzing with youth and the numbers are also a good number. So we have solutions, we have pathways to solutions. But I somehow feel that the corporates don't really want to tie up with us. I mean, there are certain institutions which have been in the forefront for consulting, such as yours. You've got governmental support to that, or individually you've been assigned projects wherein you've been able to do the consultancy. What we're finding it very difficult is that we don't have the ears of the corporates, despite the fact that we have a long relationship with them, because then uh, they kind of don't want our help. So we stand out as that, as I feel, as a challenge of being in the industry for, I mean, in the academia for long enough to be able to contribute, but I don't think so. The corporates are looking for what we have in or we are rich in. So that I think is the biggest challenge since you started and you were asking what are the kind of challenges. I think this is a challenge from my personal side. I'm not sure if there's anybody who's been able to bridge that is or would be a very successful person to that extent. Um, I feel that's my challenge. So
Okay.
I do think that there should be certain, if you can suggest, I mean, I understand LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is now getting, um, that's also getting very, something, we need something else. We need ways and pathways. If you can give us some more ideas to that, I mean, I would be more welcoming to understand how that can be taken forward.
So, of course, I mean, as you said, each one's challenge is very unique, but um, the idea of any challenge, any problem that is currently that we identified as a problem. If you identify that, the fact is, I mean, if you identify that, corporates may not want to call us, and that is the problem that we've identified. Now, how do we address that problem, right? Um, and the fact is, if you're academics and we want the problem to be solved, then we need to look at what the next steps could be. So there could be a different ways. I talk about the fact that it's important even for individual faculty to build. It's not about credibility because we don't have to prove anything to anyone. But if we strongly feel that there are certain issues that the industry to which we can contribute are not currently seeing, and we are able to highlight that issue wherever it is, whether it's Substack, LinkedIn, Twitter, or even an article in a mainstream newspaper, or maybe one of the websites, and you share it, and institutionally also you share it. So this is how we reach out, and it is not about pleading with the corporation to to invite us, but it's also a way of confidently positioning us as experts, which is not a fake positioning, but the real positioning as experts who have been able to see a problem that they probably have not seen yet. And if they do that, then we won. That's half the battle won. So it is not like we are completely close to interacting with people from academia. At least at least in my experience, that I've not really. I don't think that's been the experience.
Yeah,
So
like I
yeah,
said, it's personal, sir. It's personal to
yes,
us, more so because
that's
we
right.
are largely regarded as a university or a college, which is more on a teaching scale, right? So
Right, right.
that may be to our disadvantage at this moment. But anyway, thank you,
Well,
sir, for
I
your
understand.
inputs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Chandra. I
So
understand. Yeah.
if I may share my experience here, um, the way I kind of entered the market and I tried it. First, I went through a couple of social projects that the particular, I'm talking about a particular bank. I would not like to take the name, but I
Okay.
found that the bank and they have a foundation which was very, 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 very keen on doing certain social projects with schools,
Right.
etc. And they wanted student involvement. And that's when I approached them, and we did 1 year of that social project with the students. And that's when I
Okay.
think we met the management, they met the admin, and they kind of, I mean, understood that there is a serious business here, and we mean business, and we take it seriously. And that's when, they asked me and a couple of my teachers in the department if we wanted to conduct a pro bono session, couple of pro bono sessions with their teachers and with their first it started off with the teachers and then they went into the office. So and the topic that they came up was geriatric counseling, where they came
Okay.
up with particular interests that the elder, the senior citizens who are retiring, they needed some kind of counseling on different topics, financial management, counseling with empty nest. And that was, I think, the entry point of few of us. uh, I, I I would like to call it a consultancy, because we did it for a year. It was pro bono, and we did get our certificates for doing that. Um, but again, the difficulty is that with the kind of admin and the teaching load that we have, sometimes it's difficult to continue. But I think, uh, and I resonate with what you said, that if there's a will, there's a way. And if you are very strong about your own credibility, we just have to market it, whatever the source is and whichever the way is. Maybe it takes a little longer time, but I think academia has definitely a strong impact if you know how to put it through them. That's my input over here. I was just sharing my experience.
Certainly. Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, so what you said is very true. For example, I know of institutions where you conduct, for example, even TIS, for instance, we conduct workshops for both industry or even for anyone interested in, let's say, design thinking is one thing that we do, right? So mainly we look at design thinking for educators, but even when we say design thinking for educators, it could also be targeting at the publishing industry, and not just K-12 teachers. Okay, so anyone broadly interested in the field of education, including for-profit, people from for-profit organizations, come and enroll in this, workshop, which it's not like I can't say market, but it's essentially like, since we've been doing it for about 5 or 6 years, it's now fairly well known, and there's a large number of people who register for some of these workshops. So this is something that that has helped us in terms of getting out into the field, getting out into the world, our expertise and our skills. So it's something again that you could look at. Yes, Dr. Naveen. Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, Professor. Professor, I just had one query. If you could share the experience of how is the consulting policy. Suppose, let's say now we decided that we have to go in for a consulting assignment. So what is a generally accepted academic policy, or any university? How does the consulting agreement or the thing works within the university?
It would vary, I suppose, Dr. Naveen. I'm not in a position to talk about, my university, because I'm not, can't
I understand.
speak about. Yeah, but I'm sure, it's something that you guys will probably need to speak. If there is currently no documented, what do you say, rules and regulations around it, is probably then it's up, you may have to make it.
Okay. So any
Yeah.
benchmarking or any university that we should look up to who has this policy as public?
So I think most of these larger management institutes is something that you could look at. For example,
Okay.
the IIMs. Yeah.
Correct.
Because or ISB. Yeah, ISB of course is works at a different scale, at a different level. Yeah, but IIMs, of course, they are government. At the end of the day, IIMs are also government organizations, but many of their faculty do consulting, and even institutional consulting. Yeah. So maybe IIMs are a good place for you all to check, and also similar field. Yeah, management, finance, economics, commerce.
Perfect. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anil sir, we have a question in chat box that from Dr. Madhu Kelkar. Her question is that she's belong from history. She's belong from a history subjects. Can she do a consultancy on any sort of how she can use her expertise into a consultancy?
Interesting question. I mean, everybody needs some historical sense, I'm assuming. But it's in terms of um, what I mean. What's the name you said, Professor Kashi?
Dr.
The
Madhu
question is
Kekar.
yes, ma'am. So it's about what do you want to, like, for example, I know your expertise may be history, but what do you think you can bring to the table as far as an industry is concerned? I'm sure there must be some kind of a skill that you think could be
I
useful.
am being probably very ambitious, but there are a lot of OTT platforms where there are a number of historical serials that are history-based serials that are on. And I always
Okay.
felt that there is a research team behind
Right.
those projects, but I really don't know how to enter that.
Oh yeah, that's a fabulous area that you could be a consultant to, definitely, because there's a lot of historical inaccuracies in some of these series, and some of those inaccuracies are probably deliberate, but nevertheless, that's so it's about getting in, like in contact with the right organizations in that. I don't know whether it's Sony or whether it's Balaji Televisions or whoever, but there is no harm in getting in touch with them, and also it's getting in touch always helps when you put forward a recommendation based on what they are currently doing. Let's say, for instance, it's an evaluation of currently running historical series, for instance, and where you find the flaws are and what could be done to improve it and what could be the consequence of improving that, because they also are going to look at not just the correctness but also going to look at in terms of, like, how audience perception. Yeah, so both.
So would LinkedIn help, or should I try something?
No, in this kind of cases, in LinkedIn may not be the one, but directly writing to some of the producers, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, or even better, getting a meeting. I mean, writing, sometimes they may kind of not really look at it very deeply. But if you have contacts, unfortunately, many of the things in the industry work through networks. So it could be, and we can also draw from. I mean, I'm sure you have a very strong alumni network too, right? Look at how many of your alumni work in some of these organizations, for instance.
Okay.
And if so, that could be a bridge.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. As you can see, the process is here. So basically, this is the process for any kind of consulting, broadly, most kind of consulting. And ultimately, it's like, the most important thing being diagnosis, and consulting with the diagnosis, like prescribing medicine without knowing the patient's history. So very, very critical. More than the solution, the important thing is identifying the right problem. And it's easier said than done. Many times, many consultants get that wrong. And that's where the issue is. Yeah. So we have quite a few of us over here. So I'm expecting more questions.
Anil sir, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
In your slide, mention think of yourself as a doctor. But before doctor, patient had to reach us. Since no company is going to put a hoarding on that we are facing a problem on attrition rate on employee, how to retain them, what are the policy measures, because in our curriculum we know what are the retention methodology, we are using case studies in the teaching methods. Same goes with the policy in the government policy. I belong from economics backgrounds. My area of study is into developmental economics, and then when I was doing my research in 2019, when I was doing my MA, and when I was evaluating the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan implications, and when I talking to the block development officers or the basic education officer, they don't tell me how to do my job. I know which other things are better. But how we come to know whether the companies are challenging facing a problem, or suppose if they are inviting something for the policy adoptions. Let's say one company is analyzing to whether these are modern workforce. I read a lot of articles. There is a huge gap between the education and employability. So one thing which patients has to reach us, suppose industry has to reach us to the education institutions, so that we are facing a skill gap. So what are the skill gap we can introduce? So that's we can include our curriculum without touching the actual main firms. So how to reach the patients, or where should I open up my clinics so patient can come to me directly?
Very interesting question, sir, and pretty sharp one. This is just a metaphor, and in our case, in sometimes our patient is not an individual organization or even an individual. Obviously, it could be a system. So, for example, it's a systemic issue that so for one, we have, as when I say doctor as a metaphor, if you are an economist, or if you are like me, a learning consultant, then I see issues with the way in which learning is designed across the industry, or from the things that I see outside. For example, when I look at the projects that have been put outside, when I look at some of the solutions that are being touted as the solution, I see that as a problem. Okay, and that systemic issue that I see, I try and respond to that through public forums. It could be like open piece in Hindu, or one of some of the places where I've written, or it could be like social media. Okay, sometimes I've even written directly to some of these people. Okay, so the first thing is, have we looked at these problems? Have we been able to identify some of the things that have been touted as solutions as problems to begin with? Okay, or in your field it could be very different. I'm not saying that every solution is a problem too, but being able to see some of the systemic issues is where we start as consultants. So the patient may not come to us. So in this case, because the patient is a system, the system doesn't come to us. We identify a gap in the system, and we articulate that gap to the public, including to those who are running those systems.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, Romil, you can ask your questions.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
One thing what I always feel is, when I'm approaching any industry for any collaboration, what should be a good barter between any of the industry that we approach?
What should be a good sir?
What should be a good barter when we approach any industry for collaboration?
But good barter. Can you elaborate a little bit what you have in mind?
Say suppose when we talk about collaboration, it not always it could be only about monetary terms, but also
Yes.
suppose about some resource exchange, or might be human resource exchange, something like that, or use of some instruments or some knowledge or consultancy projects. So it need not be only about monetary purposes. So what should be a good barter when we start about? Because once we establish ourselves, it is very easy to ask for money. But then when we are starting at first, what should be a good barter when we sit at a table?
Yeah, there is no clear prescription over here. In fact, what you said, essentially, I mean, I may not use the term barter, but essentially most times the relationships are built without monetary terms to begin with. Okay. There's some kind of a mutual invitation that happens. So either you invite them over to the university for a session, for a conference, or for a guest lecture, and then you go over there pro bono. Could be a pro bono training session with their analytical team or whoever. So broadly, it's essentially to begin with a lot of conversations before we even move into a specific consulting. At least that's what I've noticed. Very rarely do we immediately start with a monetary consulting.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I think we'll take one or two more questions, Kashi, and then
Samang sir, can you put your question in a more specific way, because his question is that common challenges face and how to mitigate them. Can you rephrase it so the resource person can answer it well? In you mean to say that common challenges in consultancy for an academician and how to mitigate them? Yes, yeah. So his question is that what are the common challenges where academician face or anyone face before when he jump into a consultancy, and how to mitigate them?
Common challenges. Again, it's too broad, I would say. There's nothing called common challenges because it will vary from industry to industry, right? So for my industry in learning, we have different kinds of challenges, and we always have challenges because, educational systems, this is, first of all, a fairly very old industry to begin with. And with all of these changes in technology, etc., there has always been resistance to certain kind of technology, and sometimes rightly so, right? And also, again, the other thing is, in education, you see lots of external intervention. There are lots of NGOs. There sometimes we see an excess of intervention, and little change. So these are it would vary from industry to industry, is what I would say. And that's exactly why it's very important for us to kind of zoom into the specifics, because the more we zoom into the specifics, the better we'd be equipped to address some of these things.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. For another one of the thing is, like, institutionally, like, if you build a culture of creating policy briefs, for example, very specifically targeting industry, and publish these policy briefs as institutional policy briefs, for instance.
Is an NGO a good start for jump into a consultancy business, because they were mainly focusing on this? So academician can help them into
Yes.
solving a problem, and we can that's one of the ways I can brand myself. As you already mentioned that you have to brand
Right.
you have to stand you out self. That's the one way I can put my expertise into a academician, because my colleges have a 30 plus academic experience. We have professors, doctors who have spent their decades. So can NGO is a one method or one portal we can enter ourselves into a consultancy?
NGOs definitely are, of course, it's, I'm not saying easier, but they are closer to academia, at least in the way in which the Indian academia and the Indian NGO space works. It's easier sometimes maybe to work with an NGO than directly with the for-profit organization. Correctly identified, yeah, absolutely. But again, let me repeat this again. It's the fact that today, expertise is one thing, but identifying the problem and recommending an appropriate solution for that challenge is very, very different from the way in which we look at research problems and approach research problems. Yeah, so that's one thing that we need to keep in mind. Like, for example, let's say, for instance, the field of engineering. For instance, engineering is not exactly applied science, right? It's not like, there's a certain set of science you learn and then you apply it in engineering. Engineering is a messy thing. A lot of knowledge is produced while you do things, right? So if there is so one of the things that I think some of the, sometimes that I've seen in general, again, I'm not making a generalized statement about your university or my university or any other place, but academics who also tend to be practitioners. When I say practitioner, it doesn't mean that, you work for a company. So somebody who teaches literature could be, when I say practitioner, somebody who teaches English literature, for instance, is the practitioner, is that he or she is also an author. Like he or she also writes poems and poetry or literary criticism or whatever. So that is practice. So essentially, like, being able to practice what we teach in one way or the other, even through publishing, and not just academic publishing, but through an engagement with the real problems of the world. You become sharper as a consultant. Field action projects. So yeah, field action projects is a big thing that I think we should all focus on in academia, because field action, the more field action projects we have, the more exposure we get to the difficulties of implementing a project.
Any more questions?
No, I think Anil sir has made it so simple and to the point, beginning with identify where you can be helpful to industry, and then networking with alumni and other industry, and creating your own piece of world where you can give out your expertise and your academic knowledge to industry. And I think, Anil sir, I would love to thank you from the bottom of our heart and on behalf of HSNC board and all the colleges that are being represented. And yes, 1.5 hours that you have given us has been, it's many would think it is so simple, but it is not that simple. You have to put in your hard work, efforts to get into industry and start consultation, where you not only look at the real life problem, but you also bring out a solution to industry and create a name from one industry to other, to other, to other industry. And I would request all the teachers, sir, who were the people in front of you were all teachers, and today they behaved like students, keeping their screens off. So I would request all the students today to put on their camera so that we can take one nice picture and share with you on what the this is. I think the third or the fourth session of ours, which is a board level research and development cell. We already had a project session on how to write a research project for funding. And today we are looking at how you all can become a consultant. And I'm sure there are many more topics with researchers that we will be bringing to all of you. And let's have a presentation, Kashi, then which all areas that different colleges have made a consultation, and we can learn from each other and create our own areas of consultation, maybe on the level of our college and on the level of our board. So, sir, as I said, these are all the faculties of different colleges, some lawyers, some engineers, some um, a psychologist, or some maths teachers, some accounts teachers, some economics teachers. So it's a mix of group that you all have met today. And I think thank you so much, Anil sir, for giving us your precious time. And thank you to Kashi and Dharti, who have been hooked on to LinkedIn and find out experts like you. And he told me that his strategy is top voices, and he is able to find out experts like you and give us guidance on how can we be a part of this big world of consultation, and we can begin our first step towards this ladder of consultation. So Kashi and Dharti, if we can take one picture of everybody smiling. I know many are not switching their cameras on, but still would request for a few seconds, if you keep your cameras on, we can have a beautiful picture of all of us, and then Anil sir would know that who is he talking to.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I had also, it's sharp questions from all of you and very good interaction. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
If
you.
Dharti and Kashi are
Yes.
done with the picture, they can tell us. Everybody will go back in their black screens. They're waiting.
Yeah, Professor Kashnath, you
A
can
lovely
share.
session.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
I think it's
Thank
one of the first kind of interaction where 14 colleges are coming together and learning from each other. And Anil sir would request, if you have any other area that research centers should look up to, please guide us or connect with us, some other experts, so we can, in this evening time, learn from each other.
Thank
Sure
you,
thing, ma'am. Sure
Pooja
thing,
ma'am,
ma'am.
for
Yeah.
arranging this. I think it's your hard work for doing this. Thank you. This is a great learning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Over to Kashi
Yes,
to propose a formal vote of thanks. Yeah.
yes,
Thank
ma'am.
Over to Dati.
Yes, Dati.
Yeah. So, as ma'am rightly mentioned, I believe it was a very enriching session, and we got a lot to learn from a lot of experience that we got to see. Anil sir, thank you so much for that. It's like a big gratitude from me, to be very honest, because it's not just one college, but multiple colleges coming together. And this experience will somewhere definitely be a start for us into consultancy. Most of the colleges have expertise in so many different domains. So I believe that somewhere this is going to help us with a new start. And thank you so much, Anil sir. To be honest, there was so much to learn. And a correct start is very important, sir. Ma'am always mentions. So I believe this is just what we were looking out for, and the depth of your knowledge and the practical insights that you had has actually given us a brand new perspective on how academia can collaborate with the industry. So thank you so much, sir, for your expertise and so generously sharing your experiences with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thanks. Before everyone leave, please fill your feedback link. That will be really helpful for us. Also, I'm going to share one link in your WhatsApp group, which is HSNC RDC, which I know. It is a combination of your expertise and the knowledge which we can use for a consultancy project, and under the guidance of Pooja ma'am, we can guide you and connect you with the respective links, or you can connect with the respective links. The takeaway from the keynote speakers, Anil sir, is anything which you know for us, since you are in a professor of practices, which are common terms nowadays, anything which you can help us to connect any industry which our expertise can resolve us. I can share the entire Excel sheet with you where our faculty are expert in this. So you can just direct us or guide us into it. I know we have oceans of knowledge, but we need some directions where you can bridge ourselves. Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure thing. Thank you, Professor
Feedback
Kashi.
link in the group, feedback in the chat box. Please fill it, and happy to leave. Have a nice day.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
sorry, Kashi sir, there's one feedback link which has come 3 times. So is it the same thing? Is it the
Is it the
same
same?
one?
Yeah,
Is it
same
the
thing.
same one? Yes, yes. I
Same.
accidentally
It
copy
is the
paste
same
mine.
thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Professor Kashi. Thank you,
very
Pooja
much.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
nice day.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kashi sir, and thank you, Dati, and special thanks to Anil sir and each and everyone who has joined today. I'm sure soon Dharti and Kashi will share the recordings of this session. Please give it to your faculty, because we don't want to restrict it to our people who have entered in this meeting, but we want to reach it to many other levels. And please also suggest which are the topics of research or under the umbrella of research you want us to take care of. Because one thing that we are now discussing is bringing in AI in research, which is one of an important area that even President Sir is talking about, how AI can be used effectively in the research, and not just for copy pasting, but besides, if there are any other topics that you would want us to, or you have good expertise as expert people, please connect us to them so that we can keep it for all the colleges together. And thank you to Kashi and Dharti especially, because behind me, these two are stars. It's like right hand and left hand. So they keep running behind me and say, when is the next session? When is the next session? And I say, let the admission season be over, then we will keep it. And I think these two have done full justice to R&D cell of HSNC board by taking expertise and getting in touch with expertise for all of us. So thank you to each and every one, and thank you to all the experts who have joined in today and faculty. And I hope this session was useful to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank-
Please fill the your skill set Google form very seriously. That really help us to understand. You can forget the feedback link once, but don't forget that the Google link which I have shared. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Have a good health. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.